There's a reason Chevy trucks are known for their dependability, because they show up no matter the weather, push forward no matter the terrain, and deliver. That's why Chevrolet has earned more dependability awards for trucks than any other brand in 2025, according to J.D. Power. Because in every Chevy truck, like every Chevy driver, dependability comes standard. Visit Chevy.com to learn more. Chevrolet received the highest total number of awards among all the trucks in the J.D. Power 2025 U.S. Vehicle Dependability Study. Awards based on 2022 models. Newer models may be shown. Visit jdpower.com/awards for more details. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast? Smart move. Being financially savvy? Smart move. Another smart move? Having State Farm help you create a competitive price when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
In America, half of every dollar spent on brand medicines goes to entities who don't make them. While middlemen like PBMs and 340B hospitals drive up costs, Biopharma is investing $500 billion in new infrastructure and manufacturing here at home, and helping patients buy medicines directly at lower prices. Tell Washington to end middlemen markups and put American patients first. Visit phrma.org/middlemen.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast with Rich Ferraro.
Hello and welcome to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast, and we're recording on Tuesday the 9th of December with another visit to Yates's Espresso Bar. This is our opportunity to have a virtual hot drink while we have a discussion over some of the things that are going off over at the City Ground. So in tonight's show, we're going to have a little think about Saturday's game, the defeat to Everton, and the subsequent complaint to Pogmol. And we'll also hear in happier news about the Forest women's results, which took place over the weekend. We're going to have a little chat about Ola Aina dominating the waves on social media and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. And that's going to lead us into a discussion about how fans and media are reacting to everything that's going on in the world of football right now.
Welcome to Yates's Espresso Bar.
I'm joined by two newbies to Yates's Espresso Bar. They're both voices you've heard before, but first of all, Katie Campbell, you reported from the Hill Dickinson Stadium at the weekend. Welcome to Yates's Espresso Bar.
Hi, I'm glad to be on tonight.
Great, it's great to have you here. And then also our Forest Women's correspondent, Matt Turpin. Thanks for joining us. And what's your hot beverage of choice, Matt?
I'm quite basic, so I'm your Americano with the spot milk, man. You know, I don't really do all these fancy milk things, so just your basic coffee. Okay,
basic. What about you, Katie? Have you got more bougie tastes when it comes to your coffee?
No, I've just got some water. I'm not really a hot drink type of person.
Okay, well, you know what? That's much better, because otherwise you'll end up looking all wizened and dehydrated like Matt and I do. So, yes, stay hydrated. Okay, let's start off with a little think about the match which happened at the weekend. Now, one of the things that's worth pointing out is obviously it was a defeat, and more than that, it was the manner of the defeat that got a lot of Forest fans a little bit wound up. Before we go any further, I just want to play a little clip of what Sean Dyche had to say after the game.
Fair play to them. They look like a side to me who had the chance to go, I think it's fifth in the table, and they played like that. We look like a side who are grinding, we're playing well at times, but that mentality to just go every time the whistle blows, that still needs work, I think. But it has been good in general, so I'm probably questioning them a bit heavy with that. But today, I thought it was miles off. Just the will and demand of a group to make sure we look after ourselves.
Okay, and I'm going to start with you, Katie, because you were the person who was there and reporting back along with George. So one of the key things that I think was interesting was that you made the point that Sean Dyche actually was a defeat down to what Dyche did. Well, probably not. And you stated that pretty eloquently. The video clip is out there on our social media. But you stated about how Dyche, wants to set the team up a certain way. He wants to get them playing a certain way. Things like winning second balls, that's certainly something that we weren't doing at all so far this season, and we've got better at doing in the time since the gruff-voiced manager has come in. Now, do you think that the reaction from a lot of fans over the weekend was a bit too much, or do you think that's natural when we've had 2 defeats in a week and scraped a win against bottom of the table Wolverhampton Wanderers?
I always think that when Forest lose, everyone on social media it goes into total meltdown. But when you look at it from the bigger picture, if you looked at our past 5 league games, you'd probably expect the amount of points that we've got. So we would have expected to beat Wolves, beat Leeds, which we did, probably beat Brighton as well. But we didn't beat Brighton, but instead we went away at Anfield and won there, which is probably a bigger result. So I think everyone's we're fine. We're going to be okay. But I think everyone just goes into complete panic mode when there's no need to.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's definitely, it's not been a good week in terms of performance level and so on. But I think it's worth pointing out Brighton played really well, as Maradona in the Midlands pointed out in our group chat. They turned into prime Brazil when they played us, and then they looked absolutely pathetic for half the match against West Ham. So that's the way things go sometimes. Wolverhampton, that was a match where it's just like get the result. I think the Everton match, naturally, Everton fans were pinning something on that because of the Dyche factor. And it's worth pointing out that Everton are very much a top half of the table team. They will do well this season. David Moyes and Everton is a really, really strong fit. So leagues are not won and lost in the space of a week. And Matt, just to come to you on that one, thinking about how that's not been a great week for Forest in that respect. But overall, our form, if you take out the time when a certain Australian was in charge, take that out, and actually Forest's form is just about top half, or at least mid-table top half.
Yeah, and you're taking lots of other factors as well, not just the unspeakable Australian. You're taking other factors like the amount of injuries we've got at the moment, the fact we've got a fixture logjam at the moment as well, so player fitness is being stretched, and you're not gonna have something full strength. We're fairly lucky last season to be spared any really bad sort of spates of injuries, and this season we've got them. So there's no panic. I think the panic was before Dyche, but now I'm fairly confident. We will grind out those 1-0s over Wolves and stuff like that, and we'll get a hit occasionally, but we'll survive. I think there's hysteria. But you've got to think though, things are always, the loudest voices always get promoted more, sort of thing. So
okay, with that, I want to come back to Katie, because actually that whole thing about loudest voices does bring me onto something that is an off the pitch matter. There was lots of opprobrium from various Everton fans on social media who jumped onto our feed, and presumably the feeds of other Forest fans and podcasts and so on, talking about poverty chanting. And this is something that raises its ugly head every so often. You were in the away end. How many fans were doing it? I retorted that it's going to have been a vocal minority of fans, because most Forest fans are decent enough to know that that's not okay.
Yeah, well, Nottingham's not the most wealthiest area anyway, so it doesn't make sense for us to be singing about that either. But it was quite a small minority. Like a lot of people around us, we were just stood there shaking our heads, not engaging with it. So yeah, it's just a small minority that let our fan base down sometimes.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? They're the people that get noticed. Matt, just to come back to you on that one. Now, without giving too much away to our listeners, you and I have known each other for quite a while, and amongst the other things we've talked about isn't just football, but yes, we've talked about politics and so on. We've talked about society and all these kinds of factors. I'm assuming that people who engage in this kind of chanting are just going, look, it's football, isn't it? It's just what you do to try and get one over on the opposition, and therefore it's fair game.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember once being I'm going to confess something awful now, but I once went and was in the away end at Forest. My wife's a Brighton fan, so we went to see Brighton versus Forest, and I sat in there and I had a load of Brighton fans singing poverty chants around me, wanting to, Northern this, Northern that. I kept wanting to turn around and say, nah, Midlands, mate, Midlands. But but we get the same. It's pretty pathetic, really. So, even if it's warranted in some cases, you are playing a team which is socially lower than you, as it were, sort of thing. But it's absolutely ridiculous to base anything to some sort of superiority on that fact. More socially deprived area.
Let's not get too political, but opposition fans are not the ones to be pointing the fingers at, are they? So, there's people in other places who are probably more worthy of that contempt.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Nottingham is, as Katie points out very well, Nottingham is a poor city, and Nottingham is been long a poor city, but that's also some sense of pride that we are the underdogs in that way. So to actually, act like flash arrows on the terraces does seem, it's ridiculous.
I would hope that in this day and age that we'd be a little bit more enlightened in how we engage with these kinds of things. Let's move on from the men's team and let's talk about something which is much happier, which is the women's team. And at the weekend, they got another win in WSL2 and they beat Sunderland by 3-1. And both of you are season ticket holders at the women's matches. So Katie, how pleased are you with the way that the women's team have adapted to WSL2?
Yeah, well, coming up is never going to be easy. You're expected to be fighting to not get relegated again. But we've come up, we've not looked threatened by the league. We've played some nice football at times, and we're now 5th. So we're only 3 points off that 3rd spot that's playoff with one of the teams in the WSL. So I think if we keep going the way we're going, there's no reason that we can't be fighting for that 3rd spot.
Well, it's great to be able to be that optimistic because, as you say, getting promoted is always difficult. So just for the record, Charlton are at the top of the table with 24 points from 10 games. And then there's a bit of a gap to Birmingham and Bristol City, who are separated by goal difference, both on 19 points. And then Forest are separated from Newcastle in 5th position, 4th and 5th position respectively, both on 16 points, and Newcastle have got a goal difference of +4. Forest have got a goal difference of 0. So, Matt, we've talked to you several times about the progress of the women's team. Your favourite player, Chantelle Boye-Hlorkah, scored 2 goals, once again proving to be, as to repeat the old joke, a big name in more ways than one.
Oh yeah, she is. She's wonderful. It's worth learning the name for her as well. It took a bit of time to get the pronunciation right, but I'm there now. So, but yeah, she's spirit on the pitch. She's got energy. She's sprightly. She's she rarely changes matches and brings something there. We've not had Deanna Rose for a bit. She actually came back on Sunday, and it was that sort of unifying character that you need. And whenever she's got the ball, you sort of think she can shoot from distance. She did a lovely sort of twist back heel sort of thing on Sunday. She's a complete package, and it's players like that you realise that have separated us from just being a very, very mediocre, very cautious mediocre side that you sometimes expect with a newly promoted side, where they're just happy to grind out a few points and go to safety. No, we actually look like a proper attacking side now.
Yeah, and the other goal came from Amy Claypole, so another new signing. And this is why you sign players in certain positions, is because you know that when you go up a league, you're going to have to upgrade. Katie, the other thing that I wanted to ask you about with regard to the team is that I noticed that you go to matches. I have to confess, despite being the host of this podcast, I'm not someone who goes to the women's matches. I've just not had the chance to do it. But this season, we've seen a slight change in approach from Carly Davis, because last season, Forest pretty much played with a 4-4-2 or 4-2-3-1 occasionally. but they had a pretty settled formation. And this season, it's been mixed up quite a lot, hasn't it? So we started off with a three at the back on the weekend. Am I right in saying that? And then we did actually, when we brought on Deanne Rose, we did actually change to four at the back. So is that pragmatism or is it idealism from Carly Davis? Is it finding a new way to play?
Yeah, well, on Sunday it was a three, so that allowed you to play with wing backs, so they can get high up the pitch and get involved with the attacks, and that helps also with defending, because if the team comes at you, you've got 5 players that are natural defenders to help, but also you can get forward and you can score more goals, which is also what you need to help you stay in the league.
Yeah. So it's good to have that flexibility then, isn't it? And again, the attacking riches that we've got, I think it says a lot, the fact that Charlie Wellings, who was probably the standout player for Forest last season, she is mainly starting on the bench these days. And coming back to you, Matt, the other another player from last season who's retained a position, I'm just going to point out, actually, before I come on to that, Nat Johnson, club captain, and can barely get to kick the ball. So another one who's kind of suffered from that kind of upgrading of the squad.
Yeah.
But one player who's stayed in situ is Emily Batty. And as we've seen with the men's team, when Forest first came up and we had Dean Henderson and then Keylor Navas in goal, having a strong goalkeeper is absolutely vital, because there are going to be times that you are absolutely under the cosh when you go up a division.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Sunday, when we came out in the second half, we'd been pretty good, pretty dominant in the first half. It seemed we thought we were going to, she's going to have a quiet game. And then there was 20-minute onslaught, really, where they had so many. And that's when you sort of realise the importance of that. But yeah, she's great. Lot of love for Batty. She's loud. She does the business, really. She is a solid goalkeeper. It's nice to retain her.
Yeah, not a coincidence that she's worn the captain's armband at times as well. So,
sure, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we'll come back to some more on the pitch matters in part 3 of today's podcast. But we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back to talk about something off the pitch.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
This episode is brought to you by NBA on Prime. The NBA on Prime is back with an exciting week of Emirates NBA Cup action. The knockout rounds begin with quarterfinal doubleheaders on Tuesday and Wednesday night. Then it's a semifinal doubleheader on Saturday. And it all culminates with a championship game next Tuesday night, only on Prime. If you're not a Prime member, sign up for a 30-day free trial to get started today. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
Welcome to Yates's Espresso Bar.
Welcome back to 1865 and to Yates's Espresso Bar. It's Rich here, joined by Katie and Matt. And Katie, I'm going to come to you about something that did the rounds, I think, over the weekend or just before the weekend, which was Ola Aina. Ola Aina, I saw a headline on Twitter saying Ola Aina has confessed to pursuing the girlfriend of another Premier League footballer. And I thought, okay, tittle tattle, I'm not going to bother with that. As you'd expect from a player who's got a high profile with the Nigerian national team, it was mainly African fans and African football sites who were commenting on that. And then eventually we saw a screenshot, which we've posted to our social media. We saw that screenshot from Ola's own social media where he's saying it was from a scripted show that I was doing. Dude, it's not real. It's just something I was doing. And my question to you, Katie, is, as a fan, do you think it's all right for Ola to be doing this? I mean, he's not playing at the moment. He's working his way back from injury. Or would you rather he just keep his gob shut and focus upon things on the pitch?
Yeah, I would rather him do that. I know it's a scripted show and he's been paid to go on and he'll probably get a big commission fee for saying this, but it's about morals at the end of the day, and it's not really right to go on with when you've got such a big profile already with the character that he is, to be saying things like that, because it can be taken the complete wrong way. But I know Ola's been getting stick for what he's done, rightly so, but while he's been injured, he's also been made a partnership with a football boot brand, which are sustainable and eco-friendly. And if he goes to AFCON, he's planning to wear them then. So I think, he's rightly getting like stick for what he did, but I feel like we're not praising him enough for trying to be sustainable and promote something good.
Yeah, okay. That's a really good point. And, I think, Matt, coming to you as, again, maybe by virtue of the fact that we've seen the good and bad with various footballers over the years, there's a balance there, isn't there, if you're a player, because your profile has never been higher if you're a Premier League footballer and an international footballer. And so he's probably earned himself, let's be honest, Ola's going to be on decent wages. He's probably earned himself at least an extra week's wages, which
that's
not to be sniffed at.
What gain? I mean, it might be, trying to carve yourself a bit of a media profile for, you spend a long time retired as a footballer. So, getting that bit of media profile is never a bad thing. But yeah, you can't, you sort of think what his handlers are doing, the people who are meant to be protecting him from stuff like this, why they're not doing it. Obviously, they do it in retrospect and, get that quite weird apology out and stuff. But yeah, I mean, this is nothing new though, is it really? We footballers being a bit daft outside football is just age old. And
yeah. And to return to a theme from a little bit earlier on as well, where let's be honest, it's not like he was abusive to someone or whatever. He was a bit silly and probably a bit ill-advised. Would you say?
Yeah,
would you sum it up like that?
Yeah, it's on the spectrum of badness. He's well away from Joey Barton sort of thing. So if Joey Barton is the extreme on the other. He's not even a Peter Shilton in a lay-by at 4 in the morning sort of.
I mean, both of those are very low bars, I have to say.
Well, very true, yeah. But it is just it smacks of naivety a little bit. But
yeah,
I don't know. To be honest, I've sort of warmed to him slightly. That naivety makes him slightly, there's a slight fondness towards that, like, you daft lad sort of thing.
Yeah, and of course, let's be honest. One of the reasons that Ola's so popular and why he's got so many social media followers. Is because he isn't one of those who does one of those, clearly put there by an agent or a manager or whatever, saying, oh yeah, it was a great result. I'm really pleased that the boys did the work.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be back soon. That's so bland. We do see the videos of him dancing in the dressing room and stuff like that. So that's why people like him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we do sort of we do idolise footballers who are, you've got the sort of Harry Kane types who sort of just think that's football, that's it, Michael Owen types, and then you have the ones who do seem to have a bit of fun, and we do like them. The media likes them because they're media personalities. They do stuff like this. They create content, they create stories, and he's definitely having a bit of that. But it goes wrong. Absolutely. How many times have you seen it where football has done something and regretted doing it in the public eye? And but it's just a bit. It's one of these stories that makes me feel really old as well. I just like when my footballers, used to have dalliances with married women in laybys. But
I'm going to come back to you then, Katie. Which is, do you agree with Matt? Which is that it's a fine line, isn't it? Because we also get fed up. I often say there's no point in interviewing footballers after a game because most of them say exactly the same thing. And yet one of the reasons that people love Ola is because after scoring that goal against West Ham, there he was with a carton of Ribena going, you know what, I just hit it because I was too knackered to run anymore.
Yeah, we love Ola. He definitely brings a lot, and I think we're missing him a lot at the moment, not just because of his quality on the pitch, but also he brings a lot to the dressing room, and he's just funny. And I love when I get home from the game and I'll go on Snapchat and I'll see his story and it's the players dancing. It brings more joy, especially after a win. And I feel like we do need more Olas in football, but also in the world.
Oh, well, that's a very nice thing to say there. And certainly it brings me to say that although we've obviously missed Ola on the pitch, his ability as a very good Premier League footballer, But when he goes off to assuming he goes off to AFCON with Nigeria, then we're really going to miss the presence of players like Ola and Big Willie, and in terms of personality as much as anything else, aren't we, Katie?
Yeah, I mean, I hope Ola doesn't go off to AFCON, because if he really gets injured, then we don't have many fullback cover. But also, like I said, his personality will be a huge miss, because even when the group's a bit down after a loss, he'll definitely be in there, like bringing them back up, trying to lift the mood. So we'll really miss him.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Welcome to Yates's Espresso Bar.
Welcome to part 3 of Yates's Espresso Bar. We're recording on Tuesday, the 9th of December, and it's Rich here, joined by Katie and Matt. And for the last part of today's podcast, we're going to return to a theme that we've just touched upon a little bit earlier. Katie, you said about how the reaction to the Everton match following, what was a bad week was a bit over the top. And I don't think I'm giving too much away here by saying that, you're quite a lot younger than Matt and I are. And what I can tell you is, in a pre-social media age, when I used to go to matches on a Saturday, I used to queue up in the shop to get, they used to do the late edition of the Evening Post. So you queue up in the shop at 6 o'clock. So you get the match report, so you could read it as soon as it came out. And I remember then, you'd be surrounded by all these old duffers who are also queuing up for the paper. And they would be going, "Oh, it's terrible. I can't believe he picked that team," or "we should be beating them." So that kind of attitude's always been around, hasn't it? But in your lifetime, people have then said it in a very public way. So is it that attitudes are different, Katie, or is it just that people have the means to be able to spread that?
I feel like it's more the fact people can spread it, because if you're on social media, you feel like the freedom to say what you want to say because you're hiding behind a screen. So you're more open, you're more honest. So I think that it's more that. And when it's bad, it's really bad. But when it's good, like, it's really good. So it's from one high to one low with social media.
Yeah. And unfortunately, when things aren't going well, that often leads to fans turning on each other in a way that, Matt, I don't think we saw pre-social media, because people have got that extra exposure and they're almost setting themselves up for a fall. Now, I'm not going to name any names here because we're not in the business of pointing fingers, but there was a particular tweet. It was actually a response to a tweet that went out from a Forest supporter at the weekend, and that Forest supporter has since taken their picture off of their Twitter profile and they've gone private because they were getting a lot of abuse. Now, Matt, we all know that criticism is something you have to accept. Abuse is not. Where do we draw the line on that?
Well, I've always thought that any social media should have there should be 2 buttons to actually send anything. And one should be, post, and the other one should be really. Just make people stop and think before they do it. I reckon half of the posts like that. And that's all it is, really. People are angry, aren't they? Football provokes emotion, whether it be elation, depression, or joy. We've been through all of those this season. And people strike out. It used to be, you'd calm down a bit, you'd think, you'd relax. This isn't just in football, it's with anything, in politics or anything, any aspect of the news. And people do strike out, and the anonymity that a lot of that's places like Twitter give you means that you can be as hurtful as possible with no consequence. It's a consequence-free zone. And one of the things that as we mentioned before, social media really exploits division. It's designed to booster up the more controversial opinions. If you actually take a measured take of a game and say, actually, it was not a great result, but that's because of these factors, that. But you're not going to get anywhere near as much traction as someone saying sack the manager. So,
well, I mean, that's true. Yes, true. Let me just read out something. So this was a something that came up on Elon's Hell site. So somebody who was responding to a journalist who's a British-born but Asian ethnicity journalist, and the person responded to say, why don't you go back to India or Pakistan or wherever it is you came from and report on football teams there? And so that got reported, and Twitter came back and said, just to let you know, this user has not broken our policies. We know this isn't the answer you're looking for. If this account breaks our policies in the future, we'll notify you. Why don't you block them? And Matt, that's not really good enough, is it? I mean, you're somebody that, again, without giving too much away, you've had a long, you're a trained journalist. Had a long-standing interest in media and how things work in the media. And obviously you're here as a football fan, not with that hat on, so I don't want to kind of dox you in any way. But that's not okay, is it?
No, of course not. No, but that, unfortunately, I mean, I came off X, as it's now known, some time ago, just because of all that. Really, it's it just gets ridiculous, and plus, it's not very useful. It's but it is. It gives people. I mean, I can remember. I don't know if you probably can remember this, Rish. I'm going to take you back to about year 2000, 1999, 2000. The internet was new, and there was an advert on TV. I think it's for BT, trying to get people onto the internet, and it showed this like big forum, like computer-generated forum of loads and loads of people, and people would go there and say, "What's this?" and it, point to the middle of a nose, and people would say, "Oh, I can tell you, it's this," and they were all helpfully exchanging information. It looked like utopia, it looked brilliant. And I think they should remake that advert where someone walks in the middle and says, I really quite like I like apple crumble and custard," and then gets loads of hateful remarks thrown at them and people doxing them and you swatting them and all this sort of thing. It is like that. It's pretty much not a place to go these days. But that's what social media has become, and because of the very fact it makes its money off attention. The more controversy it gets, is that. So yeah, I tend to avoid as much as possible now.
And I did see something, it must have been on Instagram, I think, where it was like, I think I preferred it when we used to get our dopamine hits from actually talking to people or engaging in activities that we enjoyed, rather than our dopamine hits being put in the hand of a handful of billionaires who control 6 or 7 websites.
Well, very, very much so, yeah. And it is strange how much we've conceded conversation to those places as well. Thank God for podcasts. That's all I can say, is that we can still have a much more nuanced conversation rather than the limited characters of social media.
And that's why, listener, you're tuned into 1865. Katie, just to come to you, I saw an article on the BBC website actually where it's talking about the footballers and managers and the abuse that they get via these kinds of websites. And the chief executive of the PFA, Maheta Malango, made a really prurient quote, I think, which was, "If this happened on the street, it would have criminal consequences, potentially financially damaging consequences." Now, you're a student of journalism and media. Is this something that you have to think about when you are doing your assignments or when you're reporting on things?
Yeah, you always have to be careful. But like I said earlier, social media is just a place that people hide behind because they know there's less consequence. Because if you went up to somebody in the street and you started hurling abuse at them, it'd get reported, it'd get dealt with. But on social media, it's more like you can get away with it. And you were saying about the journalists that got abused on Twitter, and as a girl that wants to go into this industry, it's not just like racism, it's a lot of sexism, as we've seen as well. And it's quite concerning because I want to say what I want to say without having to worry about the abuse that I'm going to get.
Yeah, and the person who we mentioned earlier who has, gone on to private, I'm going to be honest, okay, in this particular instance, I think that they were very guilty of tweeting in the heat of the moment and they didn't think about the consequences of it. But the responses that they have received are very much abusive, rather than you should have just paused before you clicked send. Going back to Matt's point about the really button. And yes, this is a young woman, and she has had, oh well, you've only got a profile because of diversity, equality, and inclusion. And I'm sure that's something that's on the minds of anyone who isn't basically a straight white man, Katie.
Yeah, I think with the comment, people are allowed to say what they want to say. I don't personally agree with it, but if you don't agree with something, you don't have to go on social media and abuse them and abuse their character. I think you can disagree with it, but you don't have to go to the extremes of making someone feel like they need to turn off their profile picture and make their account private.
And Matt, just to go back to something that came up in part one, we're not trying to get political, but
go on.
Freedom of speech does not mean freedom of consequence, does it? As certain politicians seem to think.
No, it's a really bizarre thing that we don't really have that conversation much. We stop at freedom of speech. Example is a few years ago I used to write about some controversial subjects. People didn't agree with it, and you'd literally get people threatening you with. I got lots of threats of, being killed basically, and violence, and this, that, the other. I'd write fairly innocuous pieces for certain newspapers and get loads of abuse, and then occasionally, there'd be occasions where you'd run into these people. You'd actually come into contact with them, and you'd say, "You wish me dead. You said you'd punch me if someone in the street while I'm here," and they go, "Oh, we don't mean it in real life." And it's that they didn't get. It's like a video game to a lot of people. I think they can't really. It gives them that sense of remove away from reality, that they don't actually feel that it matters, that it has consequences. And it does have consequences. And when people think about footballers, I think one of the things they think, well, they're earning God knows how much money every week. They're living a life of luxury. They're doing something that they love. They can't be hurt by this. But God, they're human. They will be hurt. If you make fun, if you are racially abusing them, or get them on any other characteristic of their being, that's hurtful. It doesn't matter how much you get paid each week.
Just as a footnote to the story that's on the BBC website that I alluded to, the story ended with the BBC contacted both X and Meta with questions about abuse on their platforms. Neither provided a comment. So, that thing about sometimes you don't have to say anything, seems that they are quite happy to not say anything, but they're also quite happy to have people come out with all kinds of stuff in the heat of the moment as it happens. And you know what? I'm just going to, as a bit of a closing gambit, Springer's final thought, if you will, for people of a certain age. I'm going to go back to at the Football Content Awards. So Baz and I attended the Football Content Awards ceremony 2 or 3 weeks ago. We had a lovely time. We didn't win. We didn't expect to win, so that's all right. It was just nice to be nominated. And we met quite a few other great people there, including representatives from Her Game Too, who were award winners. We were sat next to a lovely guy called Giuseppe, who does a video channel called Just Juve, and also other Forest podcasters, including quite a few of the guys from Forest Focus. And as we're talking about it, I was sort of reminding them about the story about we were the first Forest podcast. Baz and I started this in 2008, and we stopped doing it around about, it was not long after Sean O'Driscoll got sacked, and we stopped doing it because we were getting abused. We were getting personally abused. At that time, my personal Twitter profile, which I don't have anymore, had which part of Nottingham I lived, and I had people messaging me saying they were going to come and find me, and I think the quote was they're going to launch me. So we stopped doing it. We stopped doing the podcast for about 3 years. There's a number of reasons for that. One is that, to be honest, in the Fawaz years, Forest weren't much fun to report on. And not only were they not fun to report on, it also gets boring when you're trying to dissect the reasons that you've lost every single week with a different manager and a threadbare squad. But coming back to that, you'd also say that it really diminishes your appetite for sharing what you think are considered and intelligent, hopefully, thoughts about football because you know that whatever you say, people are going to accuse you of lying. People are going to accuse you of all kinds of things. People are going to accuse you of things based upon what they think your ethnicity is and what your heritage is, with absolutely no evidence. And even then, social media is ridiculous. And then since then, social media has become a duopoly between Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, both of whom are white, spoilt, rich kid billionaires who are seemingly intent only on making more money without any consequence or any fear of consequence at all. So just keep that in mind when you're using social media, whether it's you're somebody who's commenting or even as somebody who's viewing. That's what they want you to do. With that in mind, I'm going to say thank you very much to Katie and to Matt. I didn't mean to go off on quite such a rant there.
I'm in awe at Angry Rich here. This is good, Rich.
It doesn't happen very often, so make the most of it. And we will be reporting back after the game in the Europa League against Utrecht, if we can manage to pull together 11 fit players. And of course, thank you, listener, for joining us. You know what to do if you like what we're doing. Please leave us a rating, leave us a review, post something nice on social media, because it helps other people to find our content. And that's something that we're eternally grateful for, because we are just a bunch of fans. We don't make any money out of this. And with that, I'm going to say thank you very much, and come on, you Reds.
You've been listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. Follow us on X, Insta, TikTok, Threads and Blue Sky, and listen via Apple, Spotify and YouTube. All the links are available at 1865.football.
Oh, sorry.
Well.
Sorry, my daughter's just arrived to say goodnight to me.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.